Okay, today we're going to start from Rav Ashi on Gimel Amud Beis. Rav Ashi Amar, it's in the middle of the page, pretty much in the center of the page. I think Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's plus of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately, be able to bring the Menachos. Okay, we had a contradiction in Reb Shimon. The Mishnah says that a regular mincha that's brought Shalei Lishma, that means it's one mincha, but you had intention that it should be a different mincha. So it's going to be satisfactory, but it doesn't satisfy the owner. It doesn't satisfy the owner's obligation. He has to bring another one. Reb Shimon, we quoted, he argues on that. He says, no, it even satisfies the owner's obligation. And then we had a contradiction, because Reb Shimon in another place says exactly what our Mishnah says. Another point of Reb Shimon was that when it came to, there were two sacrifices that it's not even valid. Two menachos that aren't even valid. Minchas chayte and minchas kanais. Basically chatas type menachos. Just like by a carbon chatas, if it's done shalei lishma, it's done for an oila, let's say, it's brought with intention to be an oila, we say that it's not valid. So to buy a mincha that's a chatas, it's also not valid. That's another point of the Mishnah. So Mishnah says all the menachos that are brought shalei lishma, it's ksherim, el shleil b'alam shem chayva, it's chutz. Besides for the minchas chayte, minchas knes, and comes along Reb Shimon, and he says, no, it's kosher even if it's a minchas chayte, minchas knes. So Reb Shimon has these leniencies on two levels over our Mishnah, and he also says in another place exactly like our Mishnah. So we gave three answers for this. They gave the answer of Rabbah. Rabbah said that there's the difference between if the shalei lishma is for the wrong mincha or for the wrong owner. That was Rabbah's. Rabbah explained, according to Rabbah, he had this concept of Maaseh Menachos. Well, Reb Shimon says Maaseh Menachos. When you look at what he did, you see very clearly what it is. So therefore, the thoughts are insignificant compared to the action. So we just ignore the thoughts. Maaseh Menachos, if it's very clearly not true what those thoughts are, so then we just ignore them. It's just it's a nothing, those thoughts. Then we had the answer of Rava and Rav Ashi. Rava's answer was, it depends if you had intention for the sake of a mincha or for the sake of a zevach. What was the wrong intention there? If it was for a different mincha, so then we say it's valid. If it was for a zevach, if it was for a sacrifice, then we say it's not valid. And Rava had a pasuk. It says, Zeis teres mincha. This is the law of the mincha. All menachos go under the same category. That's Reb Shimon's view, and it's going to be acceptable. What is Reb Shimon talking about? We look at it to see if it's the action. If the action is very clearly compelling that it's not the way that you're thinking, then it's kosher. He said, no. Rabbi says exactly the opposite. The action that's compelling, not the way you thought, is the reason that it should be puzzle. It's more puzzle. If it's so clearly a lie, it's more puzzle. Exactly the opposite of Rabbi. It's more puzzle. So what did Reb Shimon mean? What's he saying? It's more puzzle. Reb Shimon says it's kosher. He said no, even though it should be puzzle, but we say it's kosher because of the pasuk of Zeis teres mincha. Then we had questions on that, whatever. Then we have Rav Ashi. So let's do Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi Amalei Kasha. Rav Ashi says there's no question. He's going to give us the third answer. In the third answer in the contradiction of Reb Shimon.
Amen.
Rav Ashi Amalei Kasha. No question. Kam b'kaimitz machvas l'shem marcheses. Kam b'kaimitz minchas machvas l'shem minchas marcheses. Rav Ashi says, what was the mistaken thought? If the mistaken thought was another mincha, then you're right. It's going to be invalid. But if the mistaken thought was just for a type of bowl, this is for a different bowl, a different pan, a different something. So what's a pan? A pan is nothing. A carbon, you're bringing a carbon, you have kavanah for the carbon. If you have kavanah for some, for a bookmark or something, a pan is nothing. Pan is nothing. So if the intention was that it was a pan, this is a deep pan, this is a flat pan. He's bringing a flat pan and he has intention for a deep pan. He says, okay, that's nothing. That's going to be kosher. But if it's a minchas machavas, mincha of a flat pan, and you have intention for a mincha of a deep pan, that would invalidate it because that's already a significant thought that would change the validity of the sacrifice. And he explains, you're just thinking about vessels. If you have a thought of a vessel while you're doing a karban, that doesn't invalidate the karban. You're actually thinking about a type of karban, that offering is different than this offering. So now you're messing up the offering. That's a different story. The Gemara has a question. But Reb Shimon, that was teaching this, he said that the reason why it's valid is because when you look at the action, it's compelling that it's not the way you were thinking. So we're going to look at the action over the thought. And what does this have to do with a pan or not a pan? You're telling me that it's just a pan, and that's why. Well, guess what? A mincha of a machavas, a mincha of a flat pan, that you're having thoughts of a mincha of a deep pan. If I look at the flat pan, I see it's not a mincha of a deep pan. So Maseches Menachos should make kosher, even if you're thinking about a mincha, according to the logic that he expressed that Reb Shimon expressed when he was explaining the reason for his opinion. Kamar. Where it says, this is what it means to say. Show the sheet to adjust something over here. Even though it's a thought that's clearly not the correct thought, and therefore I should think that it's for sure possible. Nevertheless, we say that it's not possible. Yeah, it's exactly the way Rava viewed Mifnei Maseches Menachos. Rabba viewed Maseches Menachos to tell me that that's a reason to make it kosher. Rava and Rav Ashi view Maseches Menachos to a reason that it should be possible, because you're thinking a false thought in middle of this, so really it should be possible. So whatever the reason is, we say that it's not. According to Rava, it's because of a pasuk. According to Rava, it's because of a pasuk. According to Rav Ashi, it's because you're just thinking about a pan. It's not, that doesn't invalidate it. My aval bezvachim yenikein. What did it mean when it says which this Reb Shimon's leniency was only by karban minchas, not by offerings that were slaughtered, like animal offerings? Even though there's only one shchita, it's all the same. You don't do a different shchita for this, different shchita for that karban. It's all the same shchita, or the same zrika, or the same kabbalah. All of those things are all exactly the same, but nevertheless, it's different than the mincha. The mincha, you actually bring it in a different pan. So the things are done different. But by the shchita is exactly the same. It's one knife, you slice it, and that's it. And the Kabbalah is also all the same. Really, I should have thought that it should the opposite. It should actually be kosher by the zvicha, because it is all the same. Mashmalan, he's coming to tell me that nevertheless we don't say that. Yeah, there could be a different animal. Could be a different animal. Oh. Yeah. The action is the same. That's what we said before with Reb Shimon. We thought about Reb Shimon. Maybe which pan it's in doesn't matter. That's what we thought. Actually, no, we didn't actually say it like that. We said that whatever pan you put it in, we said this, I think, in Rabbah, but whichever pan you put it in, that's what it becomes, whether you thought this or whether you designated that. That's what we said in Rabbah.
How could the time change?
The keli is the preparation. You add the same flour, the same oil to everything. The question is which pan you put it in. Right. It lists out 5 types of menachos and psukim. Lists it out. It says you can do it in a flat pan, you can do it in this pan, you can do it in that pan. You said there's 5 different types. So, Amalei Ravacha Brei the Rabbi Ravashi. I made a mistake there. Ravacha, the son of Rav, asks to Ravashi. Rashi was the one that was saying this pshat, this teretz, and the contradiction in Reb Shimon. So Ravacha Brei the Rav asks a question. It says, Chareiv HaMishum Belula. One of the covered minchas was a dry mincha, and another covered mincha was belula, was a mixed mincha. Now the dry mincha was actually the chatas. There's no oil in it. So, and we said that would be valid. That would be valid. Now the problem is, Amai Amar Reb Shimon. Why does Reb Shimon say that that's valid? That's a question. That the thought that you're bringing a dry mincha and you have intention that you're bringing a mincha that's belula. So even if you just say belula just means mixed. It's mixed. What Rav Ashi was answering, the contradiction Reb Shimon was saying, there's a difference between if you're thinking about a mincha or if you're thinking about a vessel. Right? They have a different word for mixed. Yeah. So there's a different vessel. Over here, there's no different vessel. It's the same vessel. It's just, is it dry? Does it have oil and is it mixed? So even if you say belula, so you're talking about the actual mincha. And nevertheless, we said that it satisfies the obligation. So how could that be? We lose Rav Ashi's answer that says that when does it satisfy only if you're thinking about a vessel which is insignificant. But over here, it says that it's even a valid mincha, even if the thoughts are about the mincha. The whole teretz goes off because he has thoughts about the mixture of it. So Amar Lei, Rav Ashi responds, "L'shum bila balma." I didn't mean the mincha of a blula. I just meant bila balma, or maybe it's supposed to be blula balma. Saying blula balma, the Shita Mekbetz is fixing it. It means just any mixture, concoction. I just meant the term concoction. I didn't mean a mincha that's mixed. Yachi, that's the case. If that's the way, you can adjust your words. Basically, when you say a word, you can just say like what you want it to mean. And then I didn't mean like belula, that the mincha of belula. I meant belula, just the concoction. Yachi l'shem shlamim nami l'shem shlam balma. Maybe when a person's bringing a sacrifice, he has intention of another sacrifice. Maybe he's bringing an oila and he has intention for a shlamim. He's bringing a chatas, he has intention for a shlamim, so it would be invalidate. Let's say he says no, he didn't mean shlamim. He didn't mean the shlamim offering. He just meant peace, like when they say peace, there's something. He just meant peace. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was nothing. Peace between him and Hashem, probably because it's a sacrifice, but it doesn't mean a korban. We can change the word and make it mean whatever I say today. The kids say, I literally meant, I literally died. They say, what do you mean literally died? No, I didn't mean literally.
They also say actually. It's a new thing. All the kids say, whatever you say to them, actually.
Yeah.
Watch out for honestly.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so we're talking about the language. You could adjust it. There was something, I don't remember exactly what it was, but something with Winnie the Pooh and Humpty Dumpty or something. There was something about, that was my word. But that's not what it means. He says, so what? It's my word. I can say whatever I want. I said the word. I can say what it means. Okay, so say shlamim. You can have the same point if you say belula means this. Or shlamim could mean whatever. It says achiyashta. No. You can't do that. Over there, the actual sacrifice is called shlamim. That's the name. That's the name of the sacrifice. The ksiv makar v'stam shlamim, the one that offers the blood of the shlamim. That's what it's called. That's its name. Azayrik is the one that sprinkles the blood of the shlamim. So shlamim is the name of the sacrifice. But mincha gufam yekri belula, is the mincha called concoction? Is the mincha called mixture? No. It says v'chol mincha belula b'shemen ksiv. Belula b'shemen ikri, belula stama lo yekri. The pasuk says it's a mincha that's mixed. Belula is just a modifier. It's not its title. It's a mincha that is mixed. Right? It's not part of the title. It didn't become one word. Mincha belula. Teacup. Is that one word? Teacup? Is it spelled again? Yeah. Coffee mug is two words.
2 words.
So it's a modifier if it's 2 words, right? So here we don't say it's not shlamim. The shlamim is that's its name. That's its name. Here it's a mincha belula. It's a mincha that is. Okay. Good teretz. Belula is not its name. Okay, now the Gemara does this in several places. Actually, it's usually with Rabba and Ravash and Rava. But the Gemara says, how come we have 3 answers here? Why didn't the 2 of the sages agree with Rabba? Why didn't the other 2 sages agree with Rabba? You reconfigure. Why didn't they agree with Rabba? And why didn't the other 2 agree with Ravashi? Why did they each have to give their own answer? What was wrong with the answer that each one gave that they couldn't come to the same answer? What were they rejecting in each other's answer? So the Gemara now says, Kulu Karabba Layamri. Gemara does this in Sukkah as well. Because they all don't say like Rabba. The other Rabba, Machshava de Minkara Pasar Rachmana. They hold that the more obviously false it is, that's more of a reason to make it pasul. According to Rabba, the more obviously false it is, that's a reason to make it kosher. So they don't want to say Rabba's answer, because Rabba says, Ma'aseh Mechichen means, ignore the thought, it's obviously false, just ignore it. You say, no. If it's obviously false, that's a problem. So they don't want to accept Rabba's teretz. Rabba's teretz was the difference between Shinui Kodesh versus Shinui Bailim. Shinui Bailim, you can't tell who the owner is. It's not Ma'aseh Mechichen. You can't tell. If the Ruvain brought the mincha, and the Kohen has intention for Shimon, that you can't tell. That's going to be invalid. That's what Rabba said. But which pan it's in, that you can see clearly, so just ignore his thought. Karava layamri, they don't want to say like Rava, because Zais Teres Lemashmalu. Rava's whole limud was from a pasuk. It says Zais Teres Mincha, which means that all menachos are the same, even if you switch one for another. So they don't hold like that. They don't say that that's teaching me from the pasuk that's the correct limud. Karavashi layamri mishum kushi deravacha brei derava. And I don't want to say like Ravashi because of Ravacha Brei Rava's question that he asked, what about Chareva Mishum Belula? What's going to be with the whole teretz is only about a pan? If you're thinking about a pan is nothing. It has to be a mincha. It says, what about the dry one for the mixed one? They consider that to be the title of the mincha, mixed. And so therefore it's not about a pan, and nevertheless it's valid. So you see that answer doesn't work. Now we answered it, that it's talking about blila ba'alma, just a concoction in the world. Well, whatever the case is, most of the pshitale l'rabba l'haygisa, l'rabba l'haygisa mi bay l'ravaisha, bay ravaisha ram le bay minay ravaisha meravasi. But to Rabba was so obvious that if it's obviously false, if the thought is obviously false, which we call Ma'aseh Mechichen, you look at the action and you see it's compelling that it's not like that. Or let's call it the opposite. A thought that's visibly wrong, right? Maseches Menachos, there's a thought that's visibly wrong. According to Rabbah, that was a reason to be kosher. And according to Rava, that was a reason to be puzzle. So we have two extremes there. Well, guess what? Rav Aishia had this as a question: Is it obviously wrong, or is it obviously kosher? Now, or is it going to be puzzle? Ask the question like this: Mincha l'shem zevach, Mali Amar Reb Shimon. What would Reb Shimon say if, according to Reb Shimon, what would he say if someone offered a mincha and he has intention it should be for an animal sacrifice? That this is an animal sacrifice. Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
this is an animal sacrifice.
Yeah. And he pets it. And he pets it.
Hey, we're concerned about this individual.
Sometimes, I mean, you make flour, you make challah, and you see it starts to breathe. You know, the yeast. You know what I'm saying? Like it's alive. Yeast is a bacteria. What is it?
Professor, Harvard professor.
It's a fungi. It's a
Bacteria
fungi. Right?
is
Fungi.
fill in the blank.
It's a fungi.
Come on, professor.
Look it up.
Look it up.
Look it anyway.
Look it up.
It's alive. It says this is an animal sacrifice. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Somalia. An enzyme,
Culture.
catalyst. Catalyst. Yeah, but but for what?
That, by the way, that old science teacher.
Yep, that's
Okay, so what would Reb Shimon say if he switches it? If his intention is wrong, not for another mincha, his intention is for a time of the Reb Shimon Mishum Machshava de Minkra Leipas Machshava de Minkra. This is obviously not an animal sacrifice. So is the reason why Reb Shimon says that it's not puzzle is because Machshava de Minkra, and so here this is Machshava de Minkra Leipasla. If it's obviously false, do we say like Rabbah? If it's obviously false, then you just ignore it because it's obviously that can't be. So just ignore it. Is it because of the pasuk, which is what Rava held that it's because of the pasuk, or is it what Rabbah held that it's because it's obviously false? So you just ignore it. So Amar Lei. So I guess Ravasi told to Rav Aishia. What's the aleph over here? No, they don't do anything with that. Klum higanol seif daitit shel Reb Shimon. We don't know, we don't understand what Reb Shimon's pshat is, what the pshat is in Reb Shimon. Why didn't they just tell him that it's like Rabbah's, that the reason for Reb Shimon is like Rabbah? It says Mishum Kushi da Abaya, because Abaya had a question on Rabbah. What was Abaya's question? You go back.
Why a change of owner should be different from a change of holiness since it's qualification.
Oh yeah, very good.
That's off top.
Yeah, thank you. Gitzi off the top of his head.
All right.
Said Abaya's question is that if he learns it from a hekesh that it needs to be the right intent. So what's the difference if it's a change in ownership or if it's which would be invalid, or a change in carbon which would be valid? Both of those should be the same halacha. That a change in intention should be. That was Abaya's question. He didn't want to answer like Rava because it was a question. That if you say that the reason for a mincha being acceptable, even though the intention was wrong, because of the pasuk of V'zayis teres mincha, that tells me that all the menachos don't change, don't become invalid with the wrong intention. Well, guess what? The same thing should apply to a chatas, because it says V'zayis teres chatas. You have exactly the same wording. What are you going to do about that? So that's a strong question. And they want to answer like Ravashi because of the question of Ravacha Breiderava, which was, what about a Chareva Mishum Belula? What about if the intention is for mixed mincha, which is not about a pan, and nevertheless we say that it's valid. Okay, that's the end of this first sugya of Menachos. Let's make a siyum.
Yeah.
Several Rabbeishia. Yeah. How many did they say there were? There were 3. That's what he says. Well, there's Reb Chia and Rabbeishia that we know. Those are students of Reb. Then there's Rabbeishia here. This is Rabbeishia. There's a difference between Rabbeishia and Rabbeishia. This is asking Ravasi, which is in the days of students of Rabbi Yechanan. And then, is there another one somewhere? Okay. He said that even though the mincha was going to be acceptable, would be considered a mincha with the wrong intention, he said that you were still going to put the kaimitz on the mizbeach, but in the kayanim would still eat the remnant. However, this doesn't apply if it's a minchas chayte or minchas kanais. Minchas chayte was really a chatas. It was supposed to be brought as a sin offering if the person had the means. If you don't have the means, this is the sliding scale, right? If there could be a bird, or otherwise it's a mincha, and then the minchas kanais is the mincha of the saita. These are invalid with any small wrong intention. Just like a korban chatas is also invalid with the wrong intention. If you bring by a regular sacrifice, if you bring an oila and you have intention for shlamim, we say that the sacrifice is still acceptable. It doesn't satisfy the owner, but it's still acceptable. The owner would have to bring another one, except if it would be a korban chatas. Now we're finding the same thing by a mincha that's a chatas.
Pesach, right?
I'm sorry?
I think Korban Pesach also.
Yeah, chatas and a korban pesach. Yeah. Exactly. So, minchas chayte, bishlam and minchas chayte, chatas kari rachmana. We understand, bishlam works out well, it's good. By a minchas chayte, by the sin offering, by the sin meal offering, because it's called a chatas. The Eibishter calls it a chatas. Le'yasim Hashem and leitin l'levain ki chatasi. Don't put on oil, don't put on frankincense. It's a sin offering. It's called a sin offering. Ala minchas knais minalan. How do we know that the saita offering is going to be invalid if the kohen has the wrong intentions, or it has intentions for a different offering? The Tana Kamed Rab Nachman. There was a student in front of Rab Nachman that was a Tana. A Tana meant that he had memorized brises, and he was the yeshiva library. They didn't have scrolls, so they had one person that memorized it. So he would just say what he remembered. And he says he was a brisa smith. So minchas knais moisra nidava. He said that the leftover money that's from the woman that brings her saita offering ends up going as an oila. It becomes a donation, the leftover money. She designates money to bring the thing, and then she purchases it. She has change. That change ends up going to the shayfres, which they use for the ketzah mizbeach when the mizbeach is empty and they want it to be always occupied. So they bring those type of sacrifices. No, we didn't discuss anything yet. We didn't say anything. Amalei, Shaper Kamret. He says you're right that it goes to Nadava because maskeres haven ksivba ubechatas ksivba is nasan lechem lasis as avena ida ma chatas meiser Nadava minchas knais meiser Nadava. So Reb Nachman agrees with him. He says it's exactly like a chatas, just like when someone designates money for a chatas. So what do you do with the leftover money if there's change? So you put it into the pushka for the ketzah mizbeach. When the mizbeach is empty, it goes as donations to the mizbeach. So too we have the same word avoin by the saita sacrifice. You have the same word avoin by the chatas. So we have this comparison. Ukechatas, and now we'll say just like a chatas. Ma chatas psul shlishma, minchas knut psul shlishma. So now we have our teretz. Why is a chatas? Why is a minchas knais a saita woman's offering puzzle? Because we have the comparison, the gzeira shava avoin from chatas, and we learned this from what Rav Nachman's saying about the extra money goes to. Okay, someone told me one of the Rav Schwab's, I forget exactly who it was, someone in the family. The mother sent him to bring something from the store. He went to the store and there was change, and he didn't return the change to the mother. So the mother told the father about it, and then that Friday night when it came to they give a bracha they bless the children. So the father says, "I'm not giving you a bracha this week because you stole." He said he wished his father would have hit him. This is much harder than being hit.
Pain that never goes away.
Anyway,
Psychology can get it. That's 4 sessions.
he said that from then he was always careful. That was a real education. Okay. Ela
So,
me'ata.
what do you do with the money? Okay.
He was supposed to give the change back to his mother,
But he didn't.
but he didn't.
But it might be right to use it for a holy purpose.
Nevertheless,
Sir, you can't justify that. Ends don't justify the means, bro.
You could have donated it.
Don't end just so much.
Ela me'ata. This is the case.
Mom, let's go.
Asham yei pasal shleila shmei the gomer avein mechatas. By we could do the same thing with the asham. Asham is the guilt offering, right? It also says avain by the asham, and we could learn avain from the chatas, and we'll say the same thing, that it should be pasul if it's shleila shma. We know that that's not true. So the Gemara says danin avain me avain bein danin avainai me avain. Says by the asham, it doesn't say avain, it says avainai. Close, but no cigar, right? Avainai. It says v'layada v'ashem v'nasa avainai. His iniquity, probably. My nafkamina. It says, what's the difference? Avain, avainai. But Rabbi Shmuel says when it comes to Gzeir Shava, you can't look at it so particular because it says v'shava kain of kain. It says by the Mitzayra, the terrace on the house. It says the kain comes and he leaves it for a week and then he comes back, and it says we learn a Gzeir Shava of, it says he returns and it says he comes. Those are two different words in Hebrew. V'shav uva. We have a Gzeir Shava, zui shiva, zui via, and we say that it doesn't matter. You don't need the same word to do a Gzeir Shava. You need the same content. And so what's the difference, avain or avainai? Once the content is the same, it means iniquity, so that's good enough. It doesn't need to be exact by Gzeir Shava. That's what Rabbi Shmuel teaches us. And then we have another chatas of Shmias Kol, which this Shmias Kol was someone's administered an oath that he knows testimony and he lies about it. So over there he has to bring a chatas. And that's a chatas. I think it's the oil of yored, the sliding scale one. So, but over there, that's considered a chatas. And over there it says avinai. So we should have a gzeir shava from chatas to asham. If he doesn't testify, he carries his guilt. Rather, the gzeir shava was only for the extra money. Where does the extra money go? It goes to nedava. Doesn't go for that Shlei Lishma is going to be puzzle. So but if maybe you're going to say that there's no such thing, once you have a Gzeir Shava, then you compare it all perfectly together. It's exactly all the halachas of this apply to that. It says Gali Rachman Gabi Chatas. It says no. By the Chatas it says V'shachat Oisa L'Chatas. We have a word by the Chatas that says Oisa, it. Slaughter it or her for a chatas. Her, if it's done for the right intention, then it's going to be kosher. If it's the wrong intention, it's going to be pasul. But everything else is going to be kosher if it's shlei lishma, because it doesn't say isa. So back to our original question: if we drop the Gzeira Shava, so how do we know that the same thing is going to apply to the Saita or to the Mincha or the Bechatas? Chatas time Ma'imshim D'Ksiv Bahi. By the Chatas it says he. Achinami Haksiv Buhi. Over here it also says he. Now the word it says Chatas he. It is a Chatas. And by the Mincha it also says he. She brings the sacrifice. No, everyone needs to buy the sacrifice. So, but she brings the sacrifice. Now that was a deep question that we asked. According to one opinion that holds that her thoughts can, but she brings the offering to the Kayan, and then the Kayan brings it like every offering. She brings the. No. She takes money and she designates money. She buys the offering. There's leftover money, post in the dava. Is that true? Yeah, that's true. We learned it from the Avain. That's the post in the dava, and then she gives the mincha to the kain. The kain offers it. Right? You do the waving and everything, but is there waving by the Saita offering? I don't know. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. The Gemara asks, "Hashem nam yaksiv behu," but the Hashem it also says who it is, which means that it needs to be specific about the thoughts. It says hahu, that hahu, right? That's a different hahu. That's talking about after. It's not that who is not by the shchita. That who is by the haktara simurim. When it talks about burning the limbs on the altar, it says asham hu. It is an asham. Now, kedetanias it was started in a brisa. Aval asham leinemer bahu alach haktara simurim. Brisa says, and when it says the word who by the asham, it's talking about by the burning of the limbs, and hu atzmish leiktorim of kosher. So that hahu can't invalidate the intent. The intention can't invalidate by the asham, because we're saying that the who it is very specific about the thoughts that you have about it. That's what it's teaching me. So it says, so maybe the asham is also, it says who, which means I should be very specific about the thoughts. If the thoughts are different, it should be invalid. It says no. That who is at the end of the process. The end of the process of the karban, you take the limbs and you put them on the altar. Now, you can't tell me that if you have thoughts of a different sacrifice when you're burning the limbs on the altar, it will become invalid, because let's say you even forget to put the limbs on the altar. The sacrifice is anyways valid. So even if the whole thing wasn't done, it's going to be valid. So you can't tell me thoughts about it will invalidate it, because you don't even need to do it. B'di'evid. B'di'evid is still kosher. So Ebelahu Lamali. So then why does it say who if it's not teaching me that how specific you need to be about the thoughts? Look at the Rav Huna. I'm a Rav. It's coming to tell me a halacha. The Rav Huna says the name of Rav. Yes. Asham Shenitik L'Riya. If there was a guilt offering that the owners were already atoned for by using a different offering, and now we have this one designated too, or whatever it was. So if it would be a chatas, the rule is by a chatas that once the owner was atoned for it, the chatas is put to death. If you lost it and you found it, right, you put the first one to death. And the designated two was different, I think. But if you lost it and then you found it, then you put it to death. If by an asham, if you lost it and you found it, you don't put it to death, you let it graze. And then after it grazes, it gets a mum. It gets a blemish, then you're allowed to sell it, and with that you buy an oila or whatever. So it says like this: if you put it to graze, and before it got the mum, which would allow you to sell it, you went ahead and you shechted it. It says kasher. It's kasher l'shamayla. It's kasher as an oila offering, but that's only if it's nitik. That's only if you separated it. Nitik in, lay nitik lay. If you didn't separate it, and you just slaughtered it, then it won't be considered an oila. It won't be valid. It has to be separated then. So Asham Hu is coming to teach me, Amarkra Hu B'Haviyasi. If it's still an Asham, then it's going to be puzzle if you slaughter it. It's only once it's removed from being an Asham that you have that ability, that not allowance, but if it's slaughtered, it's still kosher. B'di'evet. Okay. Now we have another discussion here. Amar Rav. Minchas ha'omer shekamtza shlei l'shmas psula. We didn't learn this in the Mishnah. But Rav, who's a first generation Amoira, some say he's a Tana, he comes up with this new halacha that the omer, which was the offering that was brought on the first day of Pesach, right? First day of Pesach, Tesvav, right? Is if the kmitza is done shalei l'shma, it's going to be puzzle. We only learned that it would be puzzle by a minchas chayte, minchas kanayis. We didn't learn any other mincha was going to be puzzle. Here Rab says that it's going to be puzzle, and Rab explains because it's coming to permit the grain to be eaten. You always have to finish the old grain before the new grain, right? But that's not actually the halacha. The point is that until a certain time of the year, you're not allowed to eat the new grain until this omer is brought, which is on Pesach, the first day of Pesach.
It says here the 16th.
Oh, it's the 16th, the second day of Pesach. Yeah, second day of Pesach. Okay. Yeah. So the omer has to be brought on the second day of Pesach. So it's coming to permit the grain to be eaten, and it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because you had the wrong intention. Now we know whenever you have the wrong intention by any sacrifice, even though the sacrifice could be valid, but it doesn't satisfy the owner's obligation. So over here we would say the same thing. Maybe it's valid, but it doesn't satisfy the owner's obligation, which means you have to bring another one. You have to bring another one. So that means it was ineffective. It came to be matir, the chadash, the new grain, b'layatira. So then we're going to say that it's absolutely invalid. Because it didn't work, it's invalid. Anything that was supposed to have a accomplishment, Hill calls it a catalyst, then we say that it's going to be puzzle. The same thing we'll say by an Asham Nazir. If a Nazir became Tameh, he needs to restart his counting. So he has to become pure, and then he brings some sacrifices. One of them is an Asham. And then he also by a Mitzayra, in order for him to come back into the camp, so he has to bring some sacrifices. One of them is an Asham. So the Asham Nazir, Asham Mitzayra, if they were slaughtered for the wrong intention, which means that the owner is going to have to bring another one, which means they're not acting as a catalyst, it's going to be absolutely puzzle. Not just that they have to bring another one, but it's going to be puzzle. They were coming to allow something, and they're not allowing, so then we say that it's puzzle. Okay. So we have 3 points over here from Rav, the Minchas Omer, and the same thing we'll find by the Asham Nazir and Asham Mitzayra. If they're not being effective, then they're puzzle. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, we quote our Mishnah. Mishnah says that all menachos that the kmitz is done for the wrong intention, they're valid, except for 2 exceptions: minchas chayte and minchas kanais, the sin offering, and the saita one. If Rav is correct, listening now michutz minchas ha'omer, let it say minchas ha'omer. We have another mincha. Why did the Mishnah leave that out if Rav is correct? So the Gemara answers, Kiktani ba yachid. We're only talking about private offerings. But Tzibur like Tani, we weren't talking about public offerings. Kiktani, what were we talking about? Beglal atzma, an offering that comes on its own. Ba beglal zevach, but if it's coming together with the sacrifice, like the omer, which comes as a sheep, the omer is vasisim b'yaminifchem as omer. You do the keves, you do the sheep, the lamb, together with the omer. That we weren't talking about. We were talking about sacrifice that don't have a designated time to bring it. Like this, the 16th of Nisan is brought. But the Kvol Isman like Tanu, we weren't talking about this. We have a bunch of reasons why the Omer wasn't there. That's our teretz, why it wasn't included. Amar Mar. We always like to say that different teretz before we say Rav is able to argue, right? There is a teretz that you could say the Rav is a Tana and Rav can argue on a Mishnah, but we don't like to do that. We like to give all the answers first. Okay, Amar Mar. Amar Mar, we mastered taught. Actually, the Shittim Kveses takes it out. Maybe he takes it out because Amar Mar is a brisa, and Rav is considered an Amira. It's supposed to be Gufa. Amar Mar. Anyway, maybe that's why he takes it out. I don't know. Maybe he found it wasn't in the manuscript. Rav said that the Ashim Nazir and Ashim Mitzayra Sheshachtim Shleish Shman Psul and Haylabel Lahachshav V'Layachshira. They came to allow something to happen, the Nazir to recount, the Mitzayra to come into the camp. They weren't effective, so therefore they're absolutely invalid. Tanan, we quote the Mishnah in Zvachim, all sacrifices that are sacrificed with the wrong intention, with another sacrifice in mind, they're all valid, but it doesn't satisfy the owner's obligation, except for a korban pesach and a korban chatas. V'misa, and if Rav is correct, then listening the Mishnah should say, except for 4 cases, the chatas, the pesach, the ashim nazir, and ashim mitzayra. Where it says, well, they don't want to do that because even the ikashim gazelas vashmilas the kapara so like psikale. It's not so clear. They wanted to say just the clear items. If we would just say chutz min achatas and min pesach and an asham, it wouldn't work because I have some asham that are valid. So I can't say asham because it would have to designate it, say specifically which ones. So it wasn't a directly clear to say asham. So therefore it didn't get into the details and it just left it out. Did I do that? Okay. What's the what Rav told us is that anything that's coming to allow and doesn't allow is going to be invalid, entirely invalid, absolutely invalid. When I was asking, why is something that's coming to allow that doesn't end up allowing, becomes invalid? What about something that's coming to atone and doesn't end up atoning? That should also be invalid. What's the difference, allowing or atoning? The Gemara says, we see that there's a clear distinction between mechaprim, which means atonements, versus things that come to allow. Mechaprim, is that the word that they're using there? Allow? What's qualify? To qualify? Okay. For atoning versus qualifying. Machshim is qualifying. Okay. As in, you're qualified to, you've been pre-qualified to get this loan to buy that used car. Right?
Don't do it.
Render fit we have here.
Oh, the car is render fit. Okay. So, mechaprim ispuhu the asalacha misa. Atonement, it's possible to come after the owner passed away. Machshirim, but to qualify, to render fit, ispuhu the asalacha misa, that you don't find after the owner passed away. Ditnan, it was taught in the Mishnah. The isha shevia chatasa mesa, that's a woman that's a yeledas. She gave birth. She's supposed to bring 2 sacrifices, an oila and a chatas. So she brought the chatas, but she didn't bring the oila. It says, well, don't worry about that. Yivia yarshim eilasa. The chatas apparently is the one that is, this is counterintuitive. The chatas is the qualifier here, not the atonement. And the oila over here is going to be the atonement. So over here, her inheritors can bring her atonement, her oila. Eilasa mesa. Let's say she brought the oila and then she passed away. They can't bring her chatas. Yeah, it's her, which means what they allow, the qualifier. Maskefla Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so basically, Rabbi Yirmiyah just told us, that there's a difference in types of sacrifices between a qualifier versus an atoner. So therefore, that will be the same difference between if it's Shalei Lishma, qualifier, Shalei Lishma is going to be invalid, and an atoner, Shalei Lishma. As we find that there's a distinction if it's brought after death. Same thing. Yeah. Maskevla Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, has a question. Machshir Nami, I find cases of qualifiers that are brought after death. But Tanan, we even have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, someone designates money for his Nazir sacrifice. You can't have rabbinically, you can't have benefit from that money, or from that money, I guess. And you can't have, but you're not allowed to you're not allowed to have money of but there's no rules of me'ila. It's not a biblical law. Because that money could now be designated as a shlam. The rule is that an animal that's designated as a kodesh kadoshim sacrifice, like an oila or a chatas, there's me'ila if you have personal use of that carbon because it's already belonged to Hashem. If it's a shlamim, then there's no me'ila in that animal because that animal is going to be eaten by the owners. It's not really Hashem's animal. Only certain parts of it, after the blood sprinkling, certain parts of it are going to belong to Hashem. But beforehand, no, Kodesh Kachikalim. Yeah, so there's no me'ila in it. There's a different category. There's no me'ila. So because the Nazir has to bring different types of sacrifices, and he designated money, where in the money is going to be the shlamim? So we don't know. So therefore, there's no me'ila in this money. Mace, let's say he dies, and he has this money that hasn't been defined what it's supposed to be. So Yiplu Nedava. It should goes to the donations. But for Russian, let's say we did already define which money goes to what. So the mechatas yelech leYamamelech. The chatas goes to the Yamamelech le'nen of le'mailen, and there's no you're not allowed to have enough from it, and you also can't have. And also, there's no rules of me'ila in that money. If it's the money of an oila, then you bring an oila, and there's me'ila in that money. Okay. If it's the money of the shlamim, so you bring a shlamim. Okay, but you don't bring the bread along with it. Gemara says, one second, you're bringing the oila, you're bringing the shlamim, the nazir already passed away in this case. Rav Papa says, Hachi Kama Rav Yirmiyah, Leimatzino Hechshe Kavua de Balachim Yisa. We don't find a qualifier or permitter that only has one thing that's used. See over here, then by the Nazir, I have a bunch of sacrifices that he needs in order to finish the Nazirus. But by the Asham, by the other qualifiers, there was just one sacrifice that was brought. Yeah. So just 1 second. With the Nazir, but by the Nazir, it's Eina Kavua because he has a few sacrifices that he has to bring. Damar because the master taught Gilach Alechas Mishlashtam Yatza. If once he brings one of them, it's already satisfies. But really, he has more to bring. The Nazir Echshashina Kavuhu. Okay. Okay. So he has other steps. Okay. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. The Gemara has a question. 1 second. An Asham Nazir, an Asham Mitzayra rather, that was slaughtered, a Mitzayra that has bringing the sacrifice, that's slaughtered for the wrong intention, for a different sacrifice. Or something else was done for a different or the pasting the blood on the thumb was brought for a different sacrifice. It says it's still kosher. This is a direct contradiction on what Rav taught us, that it's going to be possible. The Gemara says Tiyufta de Rav, and the Shita Mikabetz says in Tiyufta de Rav Tiyufta. It's a strong question on Rav. Okay, let's leave it over here. Thank you. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Okay. We stopped at Rish Lakish, right before Rish Lakish.